So we played the testimony from Christopher Wray. Donald Trump, aside from being offensive and a racist, is also wrong on the law enforcement threat. There is, Christopher Wray testified, the largest single domestic terror threat is from violent white supremacists. Christopher Wray testified that Antifa is at this point more an ideology. What does it take to get the president to just line up factually with his FBI director, Frank?
Look, you said he's wrong on the law enforcement threat. I'll go a step further. He is the law enforcement threat. The commander-in-chief has become the radicalizer-in-chief, and I'll continue to say that the disturbing things we're seeing online, both publicly from violent extremist groups and in their private chat rooms and discussions, is looking even more today like what we see in violent Islamic Jihad radicalization and recruitment. And the radicalizer-in-chief refuses to clearly, unequivocally denounce the extremist violence. Even when he tries to do so, he then qualifies it immediately by saying, well, but the real problem's on the left, or, well, there's good folks on both sides. That's not how you stop the radicalization process in its tracks. And for those who are spinning this today saying, well, you know, he actually didn't mean that, he didn't understand stand by versus stand down, and he tried to clean it up later, I say this: cut through all of that nonsense and look at the response that it got from the violent extremist groups. That's all that matters. You can say what you want, you can make mistakes and slip of the tongue, but the bottom line is, how is it coming across to those people who have violence and racism and hatred as their agenda? And pleading ignorance as a strategy. I don't know this group. I don't know the Proud Boys. I don't know David Duke. Ignorance as a strategy doesn't work. The bottom line is, people will be called to action, feel called to action, because of what this president is doing. And one more point on law and order. This president can no longer claim that he is the law and order president when he is making the job of law enforcement all the more harder. Since last night, I have talked with law enforcement contacts at both the federal and state level who are now extremely worried about what this means and have to kick up 24/7 shifts of intelligence analysts simply to monitor who's calling for violence and weapons on the street because of what the president said. And the security now for upcoming debates, because of street level concerns, violence level concerns, has to be put on steroids because of this president.
Frank, let me follow up with you, because every word you just said is so jaw-droppingly terrifying. But I want to press you on the words he used today. Today he said, I call on the Proud Boys to stand down and let law enforcement do its job. It sounded to me like he saw white supremacists as aligned with police. Isn't Christopher Wray testifying that law enforcement's central threat to domestic peace and security is white supremacist-inspired domestic terrorism? Doesn't he have that exactly backwards?
Yeah, the one person in Washington these days who seems not to be equivocating at all is Chris Wray, the FBI director, who sees all the intelligence from a 30,000-foot level from local, state, county, and federal law enforcement agencies across the board. And we need to pay attention when he says that the top priority is hate-based domestic terrorism group, and that they are on the far right. And furthermore, this notion of Antifa as being some kind of organized group is laughable. Let me assure you something. If the FBI, who is very good at dismantling structured organizations and using various federal legislation to do so, if they had a shot at taking down a violent organization, they do it. But there's no organization to it. There's no home office in Springfield for Antifa. There's no president for Antifa. And so it's a movement and an ideology. It's not to downplay those who do violence within it, but it's rather to say that it's a falsehood to claim equivalency between an ideology and organized hate violence groups.
Frank, let me just press you a little further on this. If the FBI has eyes on the ground into Proud Boys, and they saw in their chat rooms, or if they had someone undercover who witnessed them talking about what Donald Trump signaled, where would they take that intelligence? How would they cough that up the food chain? Who would they take it to? Bill Barr, who's carrying the same lies about Antifa on CNN and other places? Would they go to the intelligence community, which Donald Trump has basically decapitated and doesn't believe anything that goes? I mean, what would he do if he had that kind of information?
Well, first, let's understand something. The Attorney General of the United States, who oversees the FBI, because it's part of the DOJ, gets briefings daily or at least 3 times a week from the FBI on all the pertinent intelligence. So again, ignorance cannot be used on the part of Bill Barr either. He knows exactly what the FBI is finding, what the intel is saying, and he chooses to ignore it or even twist it in another direction. Number one. Number two, the FBI is going to take care of business when they can, but you've opened another issue, Nicole, which is that there are constraints on law enforcement when it comes to these groups, because unlike international terrorism, where we can declare Al-Qaeda a terror group, we can declare ISIS a terror group, we have laws against being an international terrorist. We have no such law for being a domestic terrorism or declaring a domestic terrorist group. And what that means is the FBI and law enforcement can't get in those chat rooms proactively to get ahead of the violence. They have to wait for somebody to advocate and move toward violence before they can do anything about it. It's an incredible challenge that's just been made worse by our own president.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.